Welcome to The Real Story. It is not much of a stretch, believe it or not, to say that if oil prices stay at this level, then airline travel, as we know it, will likely cease to exist. People will either be willing to pay several thousands of dollars for a coach class ticket to see their friends and family, or they won't, and the airlines will go bankrupt. But the days of $150 or $200 round-trip tickets cross-country, they're gone, quite possibly for good. The real story is the airline industry was just not built with $100 a barrel oil in mind. And you don't have to look very hard to find the evidence. Delta and Northwest, they proposed a merger. They have lost a combined $10.5 billion in the first quarter alone. United, U.S. Airways, talking about a merger. Meanwhile, Skybus, ATA, EOS, MaxJet, Aloha, ATA, and Champion have all gone bankrupt, and Italy's Air Italia is trying to survive by securing a nearly $500 million loan from their government. Unfortunately, if things don't change on the oil front, man, this is just the beginning. The prices we've become accustomed to paying do not match up with the expenses the airlines incur. From everything from union contracts to insurance to jet fuel to maintenance. Simply put, something has to give, and I bet it's us giving up our seat on that big fat plane. So what does the future of airline travel look like? I doubt it's the flying cars and the supersonic jets and the Airbus. I'm just saying. Is it something less exciting, far more familiar, like, I don't know, your car or Amtrak? I'm no airline executive, but I am a thinker, so I brought in a real airline executive, David Neeleman. He's the founder of JetBlue. David, you are the guy who built the first bulletproof door for airlines. You put the TVs in the back of seats. You came up with the e-ticket. You founded one of the best airlines out there. I wanted to talk to you about the future of air travel. What is it going to look like? What are we facing with $120 a barrel oil?
Well, there's a point at which people are just going to stop traveling. I mean, we, as airlines, have now started raising fares, adding fees, charging for your second bag, charging $100 to change your ticket, adding $50 to the ticket. And it just so happens that you have this priority of things you have in your life, like putting your kids in school, driving them there, spending, and everything else is costing more for you now. Right. And then at the bottom of the list is going to Florida. Right. Or going to see grandma in California. And eventually that's going to be cut off, and the demand is going to start to disappear.
We have like $200 round trip airfare now to Florida. Gone?
Yeah, that's gone.
Yeah. I mean, forever?
Well, unless fuel comes back down. It's such a significant portion of what the airline ticket is.
I had a guy in Forbes tell me that he thinks the future of air travel is just for the elite and wealthy, and transcontinental or intercontinental trips, maybe a couple of times a lifetime, 3 times a lifetime. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a lot less people traveling. I mean, last year, about 850 million Americans traveled, and so many of those people traveled because the fares were lower. And if you take those low fares away, they either will go by car, and even that's going to be expensive.
Does it become like, I remember in the 1960s, I went from Seattle to Los Angeles. We went to Disneyland. It was the only vacation I remember. And I remember, I was about this big, and I dressed in a suit, and my dad was in a suit, my mom, we were in our Sunday best. Is it, because right now it's like Greyhound with wings.
Yeah.
I mean, is it coming back to that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's going to be a lot less people traveling the more and more fares go up. Coupled with, this is the first time ever that I can remember, because I used to always say, I welcome a recession at JetBlue. They'd say, why? I said, well, because interest rates will go down and fuel prices will go down. Right. Well, if we have $120 oil or $115 oil and we head to a recession and oil stays high, you don't have any kind of counterbalance there. Right. And, I thought that the loss of traffic we would have during a recession would be more than made up by lower interest rates on our debt and lower fuel costs. But now we're not seeing lower interest rates, but we're seeing oil continue to go up.
You and I have been friends 2 years, 3 years, and David, I think the first time I spoke to you, I talked to you and I said, I think we're in trouble with this fuel thing. I think oil is our Achilles heel. And you just vented on me. And you said, I'm trying to get us to be able to have our own emergency supply, our own oil stockpile for my company. Weren't interested. Then you went into, I think it was 6 months later, you started talking about coal to oil. This is 2 years ago. We had you on this program.
Right.
Coal to oil. You had it all going where you had 6 different plants, right?
Yep.
You couldn't get the government to move.
Yeah.
Then you went to sugar ethanol.
Yeah.
You had that. You said, look, we buy this swath of land and we can do sugar ethanol. Yeah. Nobody would do that. You've met with the government how many times and they just won't help? Why?
Yeah, it's really hard to explain. I mean, the proposal that we had is kind of pegged a $50 oil price of a barrel, and even lower. Actually, it started out at 40. Anything that was below 40, the government would just compensate those that went and spend billions of dollars to build a coal to liquids facility, and that we would have some experimental plants that would figure out the sequestration of CO2, which is a big issue for global warming. And you know, it's amazing. It's just a lack of leadership. You know, we have a lack of leadership in the administration.
But is it a lack of leadership, or is it? Do we have the piece? I had Sir Richard Branson on with me, and he was talking about sugar ethanol. Play the clip from Sir Richard Branson.
If the president got rid of importation duties on sugar, there is enough sugar in the world, and enough sugar could be made in the world to produce just a simple-based, sugar-based ethanol, which could power 85% of all America's cars within 5 years. Yeah. And that's carbon neutral.
He's saying within 5 years there's enough sugar on the planet to be able to do this. He went and he told me on that interview, he said, by the end of the year, I'm going to fly a plane with a mix of biofuels.
Biodiesel.
Right. And he did it.
He did it.
Now, he can do it, but it's not an unwillingness of the people to do it. It's an unwillingness of the government to move out of the way.
I think they're just lack of vision, you know, and looking at the big picture, and then you throw in the political side of it. You know, we have a lame duck president, we have a Congress that's in a different way, and it just seems like there's just no vision. And the rest of us have to sit and look at sovereign funds getting bigger, look at our, you know, our national security being compromised. It's really a shame. I mean, Richard's right. You know, I spend a lot of time in Brazil right now, and only 2 to 3% of the non-Amazon, you know, this is the non-rainforest land in Brazil has actually been planted in sugarcane that can be. And so they are powering themselves. Every car that's made in Brazil now, 90% of them, you can put all alcohol, all gasoline, or any mixture you want. The technology exists.
You know, you and I have both had this conversation over a million times. In fact, we were talking one time about being suicidal. We're a suicidal nation.
Yeah, we are.
We're going to be looked back. People are going to look back and go, they had everything. They had the ingenuity, they had the manpower, they had the resources, they have everything, but they won't do it.
Well, you have a bunch of scientists in Los Alamos laboratories that are working on whiz-bang, weapon systems. What's better for our national defense than getting the price of oil down to $50 or $40 a barrel? Because with that, the economies of Iran, Venezuela, those things completely fall apart. All the people that hate us now are in serious trouble.
You told me the last time we spoke that you were frustrated at the time because you were trying to go to the government and say, stop making us be Amtrak. Let us work together as an industry to get the fuel prices down by working together to cut 20% of our routes. Delta, you take those, we're going to pull out, right? Yeah. And what happened?
Well, you know, I just floated this proposal recently, and it's something that I've talked to a few senators about, and they're willing. And the idea is that we would get some type of scheduling immunity from right now, Justice Department. If I called up, another airline and started talking about schedules, I could be thrown in jail. But if you could put all the airlines in a room and say, look, we have speculators that are driving up the price of jet fuel. Diesel is $1 more than gasoline now, and it's because Europe is eating all of our diesel fuel because they have more diesel cars than we do. If you could get them all in a room and say, okay, everybody, submit your 20% cut, and we're going to keep this 20% cut in until oil goes below $90 a barrel. Immediately, the price of jet fuel would go down 50 cents to $1, because the speculators then would be removed, because the supply, the demand would go away, and then we could go back down there. I mean, who more should control is that who buys it at the end result. But now we have this speculator in the middle, these people that are playing with the price, making money on the oscillations of the market, and we're the ones that have control, and we can't use it because we have this antitrust issue.
I have 10 seconds. What does the price of oil have to be before the airlines just can't take off?
Before a lot of people stop traveling, it's getting there. before you're going to see people say, "I'm sorry, I can't come see you. I can't do it."
We're probably close.
We're getting there. Yes.
Okay, David Nealon, we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's The Real Story tonight.